Then let me share my screen on my iPad. Okay, so tutorial 5 is about the Keynesian income and expenditure model. Okay, so basically we are going to learn some calculations, what we call it as Keynesian income. Okay, and it's introduced by John Maynard Keynes, so that's why it's called Keynesian income. So Keynesian, the word Keynesian here is actually coming from the economist itself, John Maynard Keynes. Okay, so first of all, right, we are going to use questions to actually uh go through the contents that we need to know. But before that, in this chapter itself, in tutorial 5 and 6, there's one concept that's very important. It's called multiplier concept. Okay, one of concept which is important is called multiplier concept. So we talk about multiplier, right? Okay, here there are three formulas of the multiplier. Okay, for three different sectors of economy, and this is the one that you're going to use it very often when you were to calculate multiplier. Now, all the parts on the left, in the middle one, the one you can ignore. That's not important. But if you are curious about how I derive all the multiplier formula here, okay, basically it's from the formula in the middle. Okay, but I have created a video. Okay, you can watch the video whenever you're free, but that one is for extra knowledge only. So I've created a video to show you how to derive all these multiplier formula. Now in exam, they won't ask you how to derive all these formulas. I'm just showing you in case you're wondering how come we have all these three formulas over here for multiplier. Okay, if you're wondering about the derivation, so you can watch the video if you have time. So multiplier is one of the concepts that you are going to come across very often in these two tutorials. So what is multiplier effect then? So here I give a quick notes over here. So we talk about multiplier effect. We are saying that the equilibrium expenditure or the GDP increases by more than the increase in the autonomous expenditure. Okay, like for example, someone might inject a certain amount of economy to the economy, okay, and the amount of the injection will actually lead to multiplier effects in terms of the increase of the GDP or the total output of the country or the total expenditure of the country. Okay, why is that so? Very simple. First of all, think about, like, let's say someone pump in the money to the economy itself, like by government. Okay, so therefore, once you get the money from the government, you have the money to spend, right? So when you spend, you buy the goods and services with another person. Okay, so for example, now I pay to you, okay, to buy the goods and services. So now you have the income already. Okay, now once you have the income, you use the money to buy the goods and services with that person. Okay, and then you have the income ready, you use the money to buy the goods and services from another person. So you can see, right, from the initial amount of the amount being supplied to the economy, it will have multiplier effect. So one person spending is another person income, and this another person income will be used to pay further, to spend further as well. Okay, so an initial boost of total demand will lead to rounds of spending and overall increase in the income or the output in the economy. Yeah, so therefore, like for example, government pump in 5 million of injection to the economy. The 5 million could lead to an increase in the total output or total expenditure of the country by more than 5 million, maybe 25 million, for example. Why is that from 5 million become 25 million? Because in between, we are using the money to demand more goods and services, more goods and services. Okay, so this is what we call as multiplier effect. Okay, one person spending is another person income, and it will continue to grow like that. So therefore, it will increase the overall total outputs, okay, and the total expenditure. Okay, I'm not too sure why it's like that though. Okay, yep. So first of all, for today's class, we are going to look into two-sector economy. Now, when we talk about two-sector economy, we are referring to a situation in which there is no government spending and no international trade. So therefore, if today I were to talk about aggregate demand, okay, so we talk about aggregate demand, we have the combination of consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports. These are the four components that we have for aggregate demand. Okay, so later when we talk about aggregate expenditure, it equals to my aggregate demand. Okay, my total expenditure. However, in two-sector economy, right, we only have consumption, okay, and mostly investments. in which we do not have government spending and international trade. So therefore, we don't have the last components. So therefore, for two-sector economy, we only have C and I over here. Okay, that's the first thing you need to know. Now let's have a look into questions and start to work on the practice and then to understand more of the equations. So we are going to use questions to cover the contents for today's class. Okay, question number one over here, you are given the following information about the economy of Heron Island. Okay, so again, this is basically extracted from your tutorial questions. Okay, you are being given disposable income, which is in millions of dollars. YD stands for disposable income, and you have saving here the amount of the amount of money that's being saved in terms of millions of dollars, and you have the consumptions over here in terms of millions of dollars. You have been given saving here, but you do not you are not being given your consumption over here. So therefore, what happens is, in order for me to find the amount of consumption, what should I do? Okay, I can just use the disposable income minus the amount that I save, then I will get the consumption amount. Yeah, because when you earn the income, is either you spend it or you save it. Okay, so therefore, since we are being given with the uh with the with the saving amount, then we can just proceed, okay, to calculate the consumption amount. So for example, first one, when you earn nothing, but you saw a -5 over here. So 0 minus -5 equals to 5 over here. Now you might be wondering, how come saving can be -5 one? Okay, now -5 means that actually you are not saving, you are actually taking money out from your bank. We call as this saving. What is this saving? This saving means you are taking out money from your bank for the sake of consumption. Okay, like you see, in real life, right, we definitely will have some expenditure that you must incur, regardless of whether you're earning good income or not. Like for example, whether you're earning money or not, whether you are doing good or not, you have to pay certain amount of the expenses like rental, electricity, or necessities, and so on. So therefore, what happened here is that even when you earn nothing, when the disposable income is zero, is nothing, you still have to pay for all this expenditure. So therefore, you have to take out money from your bank account in order to spend. So that's why you saw a -5 over here. And this 5 million of dollars over here, this 5 here, it can also be called as autonomous consumption. Okay, you can also call it as autonomous consumption. Okay, why is that so? Autonomous consumption means that it's a expenditure that's not independent. It's an expenditure that's independent of the income itself. That means that it's not based on the income that I earn. So today, whether I earn income or not, I have to pay. I have to spend this amount of money because it's autonomous expenditure. We'll talk more about this later on. But here I'm just showing you that what does it mean by a -5 saving. Okay. Now, when the income is 10 million of dollars, okay, and the saving is 0, so that means that you spend all. 10 minus 0 equals to 10, okay, 20 minus 5 equals to 15, and then 30 minus 10 equals to 20, and then 40 minus 15 equals to 25. So these are the amount of consumption. So question A, consumption at each level. So this one we have calculated just now of disposable income by completing the table. Second, marginal propensity to consume and marginal propensity to save. So we are going to look into these two over here. So let's have a look into marginal propensity to consume. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about some formulas. Okay, for tutorial 5. First of all, I want to talk about the consumption function. So when we talk about consumption function, it is consumption equals to autonomous spending, autonomous expenditure plus induced expenditure. C equals to A plus BY. So what is A over here? A means autonomous expenditure. Okay, that means that regardless whether you earn money or not, this is the amount of money that you have to pay, okay, for your expenses. Okay, and when we talk about B here with Y together, BY here, that means that this is induced expenditure. Okay, so I can write it over here. Okay, A here is autonomous consumption. And BY over here is induced expenditure or induced consumption, in which this one is dependent on the income that I earn. You know, the more income that's being generated, the more of the consumption is going to be. Okay, so we call it as BY. B is dependent of Y. Y is the disposable income. B is the marginal propensity to consume over here. Okay, so this B over here is what I'm talking about, in which we call as marginal propensity to consume. Okay, that means every time you earn, for example, 1,000, how much of this 1,000 that you are going to use it to spend on goods and services, on items that you wanted to buy? Okay, so therefore, that's the first consumption function that you have to know. Okay, and because in today's tutorial class we are looking into simple economy, in which there's no government spending and no international trade, and therefore your income here, the YD over here, we don't have to do any extension, because in three sector economy or four sector economy, right, you have government being involved, so therefore you will have to spend amount of money for taxes. Okay, for taxes, and also you might receive transfer payments, and therefore what happen is, okay, your income might you will do some calculations on the income itself. I don't know why suddenly it's like that though. Not stable, the wire, I guess. Go deeper. Yeah, I think we should go deeper, right? Okay. Now, so therefore, now I know my B is my marginal propensity to consume already. So this MPC over here, or we call as marginal propensity to consume, is basically looking into the change in my consumption when there's a change in my income. Okay, so I can form this formula over here, in which I know that marginal propensity to consume is looking into the change in consumption as a proportion of change in income. Okay, so I can do the question now. So just now question 1A number 2. Okay, so calculate marginal propensity to consume. Okay, so I can simply take any figures. Okay, let's say we talk about change in consumption from 5 to 10. Okay, when the income is from 0 to 10. Okay, so I can just write marginal propensity to consume equals to change in consumption over change in income equals to 10 minus 5 as a proportion of 10 minus 0. Okay, and what do you get? You get 5 out of 10, and then you get 0.5. That's the answers for number 2. Okay, now we got the consumption function ready. Now, how do we find saving function? So again, we use back our logic here. You know, today, when you earn the income, once you earn the income, it's either you consume it or save it. Okay, income equals to the amount that you consume and that you save. Okay, so now we know now I know my consumption function already. I can rewrite into A plus BY, okay, plus S, right? Because that's my consumption function over here. Okay, so I put that function in. So now if I were to find my saving function, I can move around with the term YD or Y, as I put it Y, the income, the disposable income, minus A minus BY. Okay, and now I can factorize it. Okay, so now it becomes negative A plus 1 minus BY. Okay, so therefore I can rewrite into saving function equal to negative A plus this marginal propensity to save as dependent on Y. Okay, so therefore here I have my second equation here. Just now is consumption function, now this is saving function. Okay, so saving function over here, this is the formula. Now, why is that negative A over here? Negative A here means the this saving, like that's why I say that why is that saving will become a negative. Negative A here means the this saving parts, in which when you earn nothing, you will have to pay that amount. Okay, and SY over here, we talk about SY over here means that the induced saving. Okay, that means that the amount of saving that you save when you have your income. So the amount of saving that you save that is dependent on the income itself. Okay, so that's a function of that's a saving function. Just focus on the function itself. You don't have to really go and show how it is being derived in exam. You straight away use the function. Okay, so now we have consumption function as one already and saving function as a second one. So in case if you really want to write this into your note, just make sure that first one is this one. Okay, and now this is the second one. So similarly, if I were to talk about this marginal propensity to save, okay, MPS will equals to the change in saving as a proportion of change in income. Okay, so that's the marginal propensity to save. Every time when I earn 1,000, how much of amount that I'm actually saving? Okay, so that's MPS. Or another way to calculate MPS is, since just now I already have my MPC, so when we talk about marginal propensity, right? Marginal here, the total is 100. Okay, so the total of 1 minus the amount that I consume, I know how much is my MPS. So you have two methods over here. Okay, you have two methods over here. So therefore, okay, the next question here, I can use two ways to answer. The first easy way is I can straight say MPS equals to 1 minus 0.5 equals to 0.5. That's one way for me to derive the answers. Or I can use the same method here, change in saving divided by change in income. So I can look back to the scenario over here, and then I can look into this, for example, -5 to 0. Okay, -5 to 0, and then when the income is from 0 to 10. Okay, so I can write here 0 minus 5 divided by 10 minus 0. So you get back the same 0.5. Okay, so that's the answer for second and third questions. Okay, let's continue to the next one. Calculate the multiplier. So now we are talking about multiplier, and we know this is a two-sector economy. So I know that we are referring to the first formula over here. Okay, now in terms of how it is being derived, please watch this video that I've created for you. I've shown how the derivation is being done. So you can watch that if you want to. So therefore, now back to these contents over here, then I can just write to calculate the multiplier. Okay, multiplier equals to 1 as a proportion of 1 minus b over here. Okay, and the b is the marginal propensity to consume. So 1 minus 0.5. Okay, and then you get 2. Okay, so that's the multiplier effect. 2 times. Okay, that means like when you pump in a certain amount of money, it will be multiplied by 2 times, for instance. Now, let's say I add on one question over here. Okay, this one let me answer this one first. Over what range of income will they be saving? So it will only have saving when it starts from when the disposable income from 20 onwards, 20, 30, 40, then only you can see saving starts to go up. Okay, which part is this saving? This saving is the first part when income is nothing. Okay. Now, let's say I add on one question here. Okay, let's say now, next question. Let's say I say question E. I would like to find equilibrium income or equilibrium real GDP or equilibrium income. How do we do that? Okay, so when we talk about equilibrium real GDP, okay, equilibrium real GDP for the question just now, or equilibrium income. Okay, So remember, we learned that output approach it is always equal to the expenditure approach and the income approach. So we can start from this equation first. So this is the equation that you need to know for your exam as well. Okay. Now, where do we aggregate expenditure coming from? So I have just told you a tips just now in the beginning of the class. Aggregate expenditure equals to aggregate demand. Okay. Now, since we have four components of aggregate demand, but this one, we only have two sector economy in which we only have consumption and investments, right? But here, what you can see is we don't even have investments. We only have consumption, right? So therefore, I can say that aggregate expenditure equals to my consumption function. But how do I form my consumption function? So my consumption function is, okay, the up one that I learned, C equals to A plus BY. So how do we form this? A is what? A is autonomous consumption. So how much is my autonomous consumption? 5, right? B is what? B is by MPC is 0.5. Why? Okay, that is my consumption function. Make sure you know how to form this function itself. Okay, then I can do the calculations to find the equilibrium income already. So y equals to 5 plus 0.5 y. Okay, I can move around. So move the y to the left hand side. Goes to 5. Okay. And after that, it becomes 0.5 y goes to 5. So y equals to 5 divided by 0.5 is 10. Yes, awesome. So that's by equilibrium income. This is important. So how many formulas we have learned over here? 3, yeah? Okay. The first one is consumption function. Second one is saving function. And the third one is equilibrium income function. Okay, of course, once you can understand this function, it's very easy for you to understand how my marginal propensity function is being derived and how my marginal propensity to save is derived. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Distinguish between autonomous expenditure and induced expenditure. So let's write somewhere here. So what's the difference between autonomous expenditure? We talk about autonomous expenditure and induced expenditure. Let's see. Okay, so autonomous expenditure you have just learned. That means that this is something that you will spend, whether you earn the income or not. So I can say it's an expenditure, okay, independent of income. Or you can call it as exogenous. Okay, so that means that this is the expenditure or the consumption, okay, that households will spend, that households will spend even if the income is 0. Okay, that's called autonomous expenditure. Those expenses you pay, although you earn nothing. On the other hand, when you talk about induced expenditure, okay, we are talking about the marginal propensity to consume, the B. Okay, so we're talking about expenditure that is that's dependent or that's influenced, okay, by changes in income. The more you earn, maybe the more likely you are going to spend. So for example, just now, what MPC we get here just now? We get 0.5 Y, right? When say 0.5 Y means that every time you earn 1,000, 50% is going to be spent. Okay, so if today I say 0.8y means what? Well, the income that I earn, 80% will be spent. Every time when there's an increase of 1,000, 80% will be spent. Okay, if I get 0.1y, that means every 1,000 that I earn, only 10% that I will be using to spend. Okay, now there's a very interesting research, like there's interesting research saying that today, right, the higher the MPC, okay, let's say today I ask you, when you are, let's say when you are being given additional of $1,000, how are you going to utilize that? Like how much of the portion of money you are going to save in the bank and how much portion of money you are going to spend. Okay, now if let's say you give a very high portion of the amount that you're going to spend, right, that means that you're actually currently poorer as compared to the people, okay, who are not going to spend that much when they get this additional $1,000. So you see, for example, today you say that, oh, when you get this $1,000, you're going to spend a lot. Okay, that means what? That means you have a high marginal propensity to consume. So there's this study saying that people with high marginal propensity to consume. So for every 1,000 additional dollars they earn, okay, they have to spend, let's say, 80% of it. That means that they're actually in financial needs. That they are in need of financial. Okay, so therefore, here it can show that maybe they're actually in need of money. They might be poorer. So therefore, when they get this additional money, they're going to spend it on necessities purposes, probably like that. But if you are a rich person, for every $1,000 that you receive, right, probably you feel that you're not going to use much of that money. So might as well put that in the bank to earn an interest. So therefore, let's say your marginal propensity to consume is 0.1, okay, in which every $1,000 you only spend 10% of it. The rest 90% you're going to save in the banks. That means that you're actually not really desperate for money. Okay, so therefore, you might be slightly richer. Okay, so that's the answers for your question 2. So let's have a look into question number 3. Question number 3 is specifically the kind of question you'll come across in your midterms. So an economy has the following information in which autonomous consumption is 10 billion, investment is 20 billion. Now we have second component here, which is investment, and MPC is 0.8. So with the detailed and complete working calculations, determine the consumption function and the aggregate expenditure function and the equilibrium income, Y, like what I mentioned just now. Okay, let's do the first three first. Remember, when in the question, when I say function, function means I don't have to convert it into the figures itself yet. It's just function. Okay, function is like what we have learned just now, the consumption and saving function. I do not need to go and calculate the actual numbers yet. Okay, let's do this together. Assuming this is your midterm question, this is what you will come across in midterms and your final exam as well. Now, just now, autonomous consumption is how much? 10 billion, right? Okay, investment is 20 billion. Okay, and marginal propensity to consume is 0.8. Okay, now we can straight away start already. So we can form our consumption function, which is C equals to A plus BY. Okay, that's my disposable income. So I can straight write 10 plus 0.8 Y. Okay, done. Okay, then now I would like to look into aggregate expenditure. So as I say, aggregate expenditure looks into aggregate demand. And here we only have two components in which it is consumption and investments. So consumption, I already got the equation, which is 10.0.8y plus investment, which is 20 billion. And therefore, I move around, I will get this amount. This is the answer, 30 plus 0.8y. So do you go and calculate any of the figures? No need yet. Okay, you just leave it there as function. Question C is equilibrium income. Okay, so what's the formula? Y equals to AE, okay, in which Y equals to the function that I've just derived, 30 plus 0.8y. So I move around and Y equals to 150 billion. Of course, you don't have to write the unit also can. You just write 150 also to go. Okay, So A and B are just leaving there as functions. And then C, you get the values ready in which I can substitute that into the functions in order for me to find the what we call as the values. Okay, so let's see question D. Now, question D, I say aggregate consumption. Now, you see, when I say aggregate consumption, that means I want the values in billion of dollars. Similarly, I ask aggregate saving means I am asking for values. So this question D and if E, I'm asking for values itself. Okay, I need the values. How do I get the values? That I have to get the values from substituting the amount, the y equals to 150 billion into the function. Okay, so I do one time for you to show you how it works. Okay, so we know that consumption equals to 10 plus 0.8 y. Okay, so now I can substitute that in y equals to 150, and therefore I put that in and use your calculator to derive. You will get 130 billion. You can just write 130. I'm just trying to specify and write billion over there. 130. Okay. Moving on to question E. Okay. Saving. I want to find a saving amount. So I can just use some formula that I learned just now. Saving equals to income, the total income minus the consumption. So I know my total income is 150. Okay. Minus the consumption, which is 130. So therefore, I know the left of 20 billion is the saving amount. So you are just playing around with the equation. Not too difficult, right? Easy, right? Fun, right? Okay. And the last question is about the multiplier. So similarly, we are using back the same multiplier function. Okay. So the multiplier function is for two-sector economy, 1 as a proportion of 1 minus B. Okay. So 1 over 1 minus B here is 0.8. How do I get 0.8? Because it's my marginal propensity to consume. That is my B, okay? That's my B, okay? So therefore, I put that into calculator and I calculate what did I get? You should get 5. Let me know if, let's say, the value is incorrect. Huh? Okay, so that's the answer for question number 3. So this is a kind of question that you'll come across in your midterms for calculation. Maybe just the first few questions only I talked about. But multiplier will definitely will be there. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Okay, so we have done with the last one just now, multiplier. Okay, now question number 4 is the extended version of question number 3. It's continue one. Okay, based on information from the question number 3, assume investment in year 2. Okay, now investment in year 2 increased by 5 billion. Okay, investment increase. Huh? So there's a change in investment by 5 billion. Okay, with detailed and complete workings, calculate the followings. First one, again, I want to find my new aggregate expenditure function for year 2, the new one. And I want to find the change in the equilibrium real GDP again. Because now change already, ma. Just now, the equilibrium income is for the first one. Now there's a change already. I want to find the change. Okay, the change only. I'm not asking you to calculate the exact value yet. The change only. That's why it's a triangle over there, the change. And the question C only asking you to calculate the equilibrium income, which is the value. C here only is the values. This one is only the change. And the first one is only the function. Okay, so let's do it together. Okay, question continue. Okay, question 4. Okay. Uh Investment in year 2 increased by 5 billion. Okay. So now question A. Okay. My new aggregate expenditure function in year 2. Okay. First of all, what's my aggregate expenditure in the initial one? 30 plus 0.8y, right? So I will write like this. The formula is aggregate expenditure in year 1 plus the change in investments. So therefore, the formula is 30 plus 0.8y, okay, plus 5 billion now. Okay, so now my new function is 35 plus 0.8y. So this is my answers for the aggregate expenditure function, full stop. And then continue to question number B here. B is to calculate the change in the income. Okay, so I want to find the change in income. How do I do that? Now, new formula that you're going to learn. You're going to use multiplier, okay, times the change in the injection. A is the injection of the autonomous component. So like for example, autonomous component would be like, like the autonomous consumption, okay, or investment or government spending. Okay, so when we talk about this one, okay, if let's say question give you increase in investment or increase in government spending, all this we can use it as a capital letter of A. So please watch the video that I created, although it will not be it will not be accessed in your exam, but you will understand why I use capital letter of A. The video is only 18 minutes, not too long. It just show you how the formula is being derived. When you have time to watch the video. Okay, so I've the link is the one in the beginning of your notes. Okay, so now I can use the formula. Multiplier is how much just now? 5. Okay, and the change in the autonomous expenditure here is the investment. So is 5 times 5 billion. So 5 lah. Okay. So equals to 25 billion. Now, if you do not write the unit, it's perfectly fine. I just want to see the values. The value is correct, that is okay already. As long as you know what it means, then it's cukup makan already. Okay. So next time, as long as you know how to interpret it, that is more than enough. So now I would like to find my new real GDP. Okay, I want to find my values, the values for the new equilibrium. So I use the equilibrium in year 1, okay, plus my change over here. Now sometimes you may have more than one method for you to derive the answer, so it's up to you. Okay, so therefore this one initially the equilibrium is 150. 150 billion plus now and another increase of 25 billion, so it will becomes 175 billion. Okay, so therefore that's the answers. So can you see one thing over here? Do you realize that multiplier already playing a role over here? You see, how much is the increment of investment here? 5 billion. Betul or not? Okay, 5 billion. Okay, but with this multiplier of 5, what do you see? The increase in the total output is how much? 25 billion. 5 billion is being invested, but the increment of the output is 25 billion. That is what we call as multiplier effect. Someone pumped in the investment by 5 billion, but at the end, the total increase in the income or output is by 25 billion. Banyak. Why is that banyak? Because of the multiplier effect playing a role, in which I can put it here, this color, this one. Okay, so this is the multiplier effect that I'm talking about. So 5 billion ends up becomes 25 billion. This is what we call as the multiplier effect. Okay. So therefore, in question D over here, the question is asking, how does the multiplier explain the fact that the change in GDP will be greater? Because the change in GDP is how much? 25 billion. Okay, will be greater than the initial 5 billion increase in investment. Of course not, because of multiplier effect. Okay, now, so let me explain to you through words first, so that you can put into your wait, hold on, let me check. Okay, so here the question D, the answer is basically saying that with the multiplier of 5, okay, that means multiplier means multiplication, okay, the increase in investment, okay, generates a rise in induced expenditure, okay, resulting in an increase in GDP of 25 billion, okay, which is greater than the initial investment, greater than the initial 5 billion of investment. Okay, but this sentence is not too important. I want to show you how is this how can we actually put the transition into words. So I will show you in a while, in which you can put into, like, for example, writings or assignments. Okay, so let's see. You see, just now our function is this. Aggregate expenditure equals to 35 plus 0.8y. Okay, so our marginal propensity to consume is 0.8y over here. So you go to my notes, scroll down to the bottom here, cheat sheet. Okay. Okay, let's say you look into consumption function, easier a bit. Okay, so let's say consumption function is 10 plus 0.8y. So this 0.8, okay, the 0.8 over here is my MPC. So the whole thing here is induced expenditure, and the 0.8 is my MPC. That means every 1,000 increase in the income, it will result in people spending 80% of it. Okay, so like for example, now investment increased by 5 billion, as what stated in the question. Okay, so therefore it will result in shortages. Why? Because people will start demand more of goods and services. People invest more, you will need more goods and services, more production, and so on. So firms will start to hire more producers, hire more of the resources. Okay, so they'll hire more resources, and therefore people will get employed. So when people get employed and work, okay, and to produce the goods and services, what happens is they will earn an income, right? So the income increased by 5 billion, for example. Now, out of this 5 billion, right? Out of this income that's being earned, 5 billion, 80% of it, okay, 80% of it will be used for consumption, which is 4 billion, because you use 5 times 80% is 4 billion. So therefore, once we have the income of 5 billion increment, okay, consumption will increase by 4 billion. Why? Because 80% of this income will be spent. Okay, now when you spend 4 billion of goods and services, that means producers have to produce the goods and services, right? This will result in the income or the output increase by 4 billion as well. Now, when the income or output increase by 4 billion, what happened is this 80% of it will be used for consumption again, which is 3.2 billion. So that means when people consume or buy the goods and services that worth 3.2 billion, that means producers, okay, and the firms will have to produce goods and services that's up to 3.2 billion as well. Okay, and again, this 3.2 billion, 80% of it will be used to spend. So every time when there's this increment of income or total outputs, 80% of it will be spent again and again until at the end it becomes zero. So total up, okay, total up, it will result in a total of 25 billion increase in real GDP. So here, increase 5 billion, 4 billion, 3.2 billion, yada yada, and so on. At the end, my total outputs will increase by 25 billion, the real GDP, which is my Y. Total increase by 25 billion, although the initial pump in is only 5 billion. That's what I mean by multiplier effect, or not, or what we call as the marginal propensity to consume. 80% of it will be spent. Okay, question number 5 over here is basically in which you need to draw the graph already. So again, it's the continuous version of the previous question just now. For this kind of graph, not only you might need to use it for exam, but you might need to use it for your assignment if you want to. Okay, now draw an aggregate expenditure diagram. So this is what we call as aggregate expenditure diagram. For the result that you obtain from question 3 and 4, label all the curve appropriately with the information obtained above. Explain the effects of the change on investments on the aggregate expenditure function. Explain how the inventory level play a role in determining equilibrium changes in outputs. So first of all, okay, my y-axis over here is what we call as planned expenditure, or you can call it as aggregate expenditure, total expenditure. And my x-axis over here is real GDP. Okay, that's stated over there. Now, by right, we should assume that, okay, I use a line here, okay, we should assume that aggregate expenditure and real GDP are growing in the same proportion like this 45 degree of the line itself. Okay, 45 degrees. So y equals to AE. Y is here, what we call as output approach. AE is expenditure approach, right? So y should always equals to AE. So every time when there's an increase in total outputs, the real GDP, it should be followed by an increase in aggregate expenditure by the same proportion, theoretically speaking. Okay. Now, that is just an assumption. Now we have to form our aggregate expenditure graph. Okay, so we put this red color line, as you can see, AE1 equals to 30 plus 0.8y. Okay, how do we form this graph? First of all, okay, when we talk about this graph itself, okay, 30 plus 0.8y. So what is this 30 again? This 30 is the autonomous expenditure. Very good. So therefore, 30 here is on my y-axis over here, 30. Okay, that's why I start from 30. Now, actually, I don't usually write this one because later it might be a bit confusing. Okay, because I want to label about aggregate expenditure. Okay, I want to label about this one. I do not want to label this autonomous expenditure over here. But I'm showing you here is because for you to understand how do I plot the diagram. Okay, so since now my what we call as my autonomous expenditure, okay, my autonomous expenditure is 30. So I start from 30. Okay, but usually we do not write that. Okay, and then you plot this line over here. Okay, plus 0.8y. Okay, so that's a red color line. Okay, so now what happened is first of all, you have plot your line here. Okay, now we have an equilibrium. So let me show you here in blue color, in yellow color here. Now this point A here is the what we call as the equilibrium, the initial equilibrium. So therefore, initially at point A, okay, initially at point A, your real GDP is 150. How do I get this 150? From the calculation in the question 3 just now. 150. Okay, and this expenditure here is 150. So this is why I recommend you not to label the 30 and 35. It will be very messy because it's not at the right scale. Yeah. So remember, when my output is 150, okay, here my aggregate expenditure is also 150. Okay. So that is your first equilibrium. This is what we call as equilibrium in which y equals to AE. Y equals to AE. Okay. Now there's a increase in the investment. Okay. Increase in investment by 5 billion. So 5 billion increase in investment. Now here, investment is part of your autonomous. Okay, so it will add up to this autonomous part. So it becomes 35. So you plot your second graph in which it start from 35 here. Okay, but again, the one we don't usually write that in the graph because it may be very messy. Okay, so we want to write the aggregate expenditure one. So now by point 8, I move up to this point, which is point A1. So at point A1, My total outputs or my real GDP is still 150, but what about my aggregate expenditure? It goes up to 155 already, right? So let's see if I write some. Yeah, 155. Yeah, because add on 5 billion, right? So therefore, my aggregate expenditure now it becomes, I should label this one as 1, this one as 2. Okay, this one is 2. Okay, so now my aggregate expenditure equals to 155. Okay, so that means what you can see here is once I move to A1 over here, okay, my real GDP is still at 150, but my aggregate expenditure is 155 already. Spending more than what is being available in the country, right? Expenditure becomes 155, but total output is only 150. So would there be a shortage or surplus over here? People are actually spending more. Expenditure means spending more. So people are spending up to the amount of 155 billion, but the real GDP is only 150 billion. So what do we mean by here? There's a shortage. Okay, there's a shortage. Why is there a shortage? Because now people are spending up to this amount, but the real GDP is only this amount. Okay, so therefore there's a shortage. So there's a shortage. What happens is firms, producers will have to increase their production. So here it explains the movement along the curve itself from this point A1 moving to this point B over here, in which at the end, it ends up at a new real GDP, which is 175, and also at a same level of aggregate expenditure, which is 175. Okay, so at the end, it goes back to the new equilibrium in which my aggregate expenditure equals to my total outputs. So again, all these values, you got it from a calculation just now. Yeah. So let's have a look into how I explain it. Okay. So initially, the economy is operating at equilibrium point A, okay, where AE equals to Y equals to 150 billion of the real GDP. That's the initial amount. So an increase of 5 billion investment result in an upward shift of aggregate expenditure. Okay, a rise in the aggregate expenditure. That's why from point A to point A1. Okay, after that, there is this equilibrium already. Why? Because your aggregate expenditure is larger than outputs. 155 billion is larger than 150. So there is a stock shortages. So it's signal for the firms to increase production to replace the stock levels by hiring more workers and increasing employment. So once they do that, that's what we call as multiplier effect. Multiplier effect occurs as increase in the real GDP, okay, will result in higher national income, which leads to higher consumption. And the process of increasing production, employment, residents' income, and consumption will continue until the impact of the initial change becomes zero. This sentence here is basically explaining this one that I mentioned just now. Yeah. So it's saying that they increase production and therefore they hire people. When they hire people, income will increase. Income increase, they will spend more. Do you realize that I put everything into words right now? So that explains the multiplier effect. So at the end, because of this multiplier effect, it caused a rise in the real GDP greater than the initial increase in the investment. So at the end, it actually increased the real GDP by 25 billion, result in a total of 175 billion of real GDP. That's my new equilibrium. Okay, so the only important part in which you need to know how to put into words is this one, multiply effect. Okay, how do you explain the cheat sheet over here into the multiply effect? Okay, so these are the things that I want to cover for today's tutorial.